We're learning now in the morning koil Sechtes Arvei Pesachim B'Torah's Psicha. We say every day before Psukkah de Zimbra Eizeu Mekayman the Karbonis. So it's interesting in the Mishnayos, speaking about the Karbonis, the Chatas, the Necholim, the Yom V'Layla, Hatoida v'Necholim b'Chol ha'ir. But then when it comes to the Karban Pesach, the Mishnah says Abachor v'Hamaiser v'Pesach. So there's a difference between the three different Karbonis. And the Mishnah says Shino b'Achilosan HaPesach. The Karban Pesach Einoi Nechal Ela B'Layla. Other Karbonis you have a day and a night. The Karban Pesach is only by night. The Einoi Nechal Ela At Chatzos, it's only till Chatzos. The Einoi Nechal Ela L'Menuya, the Einoi Nechal. What's the pshat that by Karban Pesach it says Ve'einoi Nechal as opposed to everything else? All the other Karbonis it says Ve'nechal. It's L'Yom V'Layla. Here it's Einoi Nechal Ela At Chatzos. So it's said that it's different by Pesach. Really, maybe it should be the whole year, but at least by Pesach, person has to know that everything is Einoi Nechal till you make sure that it's good to go to eat. It's Avertel. But I'm saying we're starting now Arvei Pesachim at Hagdama in Hilchas Pesach. You find that actually in Hilchas Chalamoid, the beginning of Hilchas Chalamoid, Chelik Vav, the Mishabur starts off. These are ganzen halachas of Chalamoid. So the tamtzis in the Mishabur over there is a person has to understand that Chalamoid, sometimes people think Chalamoid is a regular weekday. These some halachas what you're not allowed to do. It's the opposite. Chalamoid, everything's aser till you learn the halachas and you know these heterim, this heter and that heter, but be'etzim everything's aser. Just on the note of Einoi Nechal, just to share with the Olam, the Ben Ish Chai, the Ben Ish Chai, they bring B'Shem the Ben Ish Chai, he says, HaPesach Einoi Nechal Ela B'Chametz. Pesach is only eat Ela B'Chametz. What does it mean Ela B'Chametz? Ela B'Chametz. Now Ela B'Chametz is the Beis is Balayla, Ches is Chatzos, Mem Menuyov, and Sadak is Tzili. The Mishnah begins the 10th Perek in Pesachim, Arvei Pesachim Samach LaMincha Lo Yochel Adam At Shetachshach. These are Isser to eat Erev Pesach. From when? From when? So the Mishnah says, you're not allowed to eat from Samach LaMincha till when? At Shetachshach. Very clear, very clear. Erev Pesach is an Isser to eat from Samach LaMincha. When is the time of Mincha, Samach LaMincha? So the Gemara clears the Shaila, the Gemara later, what we skipped along to Daf Kuf Zayin. The Gemara clears, is it Mincha Ktana, time later in the afternoon? We'll soon get to exactly what Mincha Ktana is. But Mincha Ktana is in the early afternoon, let's call it around 3-4 o'clock. Or Mincha G'dayla, which let's say today Mincha G'dayla is 12:34 or something like 12:37. From when is it also to eat Erev Pesach? The Gemara clears the Shaila. It says in the Mishnah Samach LaMincha. So what Mincha? Mincha G'dayla, which is earlier in the day, or Mincha Ktana, which is later in the day. So the Gemara says it's totally, what's the reason why you're not allowed to eat Erev Pesach? Why you're not allowed to eat Erev Pesach? What's the Isser? What's the reason for the Isser? If the reason why you're not allowed to eat Erev Pesach is not to be distracted from bringing the Karban Pesach, then says the Gemara, then it's already from an earlier Zman, from Mincha G'dayla. Though Lav Dafka, that's when they exactly brought the Karban Pesach, but Chazal said you're not allowed to eat already from around Chatzos time because you have to be focused on the afternoon to bring the Karban Pesach. However, if the reason why you're not allowed to eat Erev Pesach is so that you should eat the matzah Leil Haseder L'Tayavain, meaning to say is if you're going to eat 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's going to come Pesach by night. You're not going to be hungry and eat the matzah with a geschmack. So Mele Chazal said he's an Isser to eat from when? From Mincha Ktana, later in the afternoon, around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If the reason why you're not allowed to eat Erev Pesach is that you shouldn't be distracted from bringing the Korban Pesach, Frek Tosfos, so why is the end time you're not allowed to eat till when? From Mincha. But till when? The Mishnah says without no shaila, Achatechshach, till by night, till you make Kiddush. You're not allowed to eat before. Frek Tosfos over here for Nartkov Zayin, if the reason why you're not allowed to eat is because you're going to be distracted from bringing the Korban Pesach, once you brought the Korban Pesach, you should be allowed to eat. Achatechshach, till by night. There's no din. It's not because of the Latayavit. You shouldn't, by mistake, not bring the Korban Pesach. Okay, so once you brought the Korban Pesach, you're done, you were Yoitza, and you should be able to eat. So why Achatechshach? So Tosfos says that we're afraid that it could be you're going to rush through the Korban Pesach. To say, if we're going to say that you're allowed to eat after you bring the Korban Pesach, we're afraid you're hungry, you want to eat, you just quickly do the bring the Korban Pesach. These halachas, how you prepare the Korban Pesach, with tzli, these different halachas, and we're afraid you're going to rush through it, you're not going to do a kedin. Therefore, just to be clear, no eating achatechshach. To say that's the whole time of avodas Korban Pesach, instead of saying till after you bring the Korban Pesach. Just on the concept, this idea of you shouldn't bring the Korban Pesach quickly so you should be able to eat. These halacha in Shulchan Aruch, it's dina da shas, and it might even be midoraisa. You're not allowed to eat before davening. If some rishonim, it's clearly issa deraisa. However, there are heterim when there's a tzorech, when a person's shvach. We spoke about it over here in the Koil when we learned Masechtas Brachas. I'm not going into the halachas. Certain chassidim eat before davening. Again, I'm not going into the halacha. That's not the discussion here, but I want to bring out the concept. And they say, rather eat to be able to daven, have koyach to daven, then daven to eat. It says to rush through davening, so like this you could go and eat. You're davening pasha because you wake up, you're hungry, you're not allowed to eat, so you're davening to be able to eat. That would be the concept over here, like Tosfos Agab the Korban Pesach. A person shouldn't rush through the Korban Pesach to be able to eat. So Mela doesn't make a difference. You can do the Korban Pesach in 5 minutes. You can't eat anyways till Leila Seder, till Pesach by night. So again, the Gemara declares in the Isser Achila, is it Mimincha Gedoyla because of the Korban Pesach, or is it later Mimincha Ktana because you should eat a matzah l'tayavan? Gemara declares the Shaila. The Gemara concludes that the Isser to eat Erev Pesach is so you should eat a matzah l'tayavan, and therefore the Isser is only from Mincha Ktana. And that's La Halacha, the Shulchan Aruch, and Siman Tov Ayin Aleph Sif Aleph. Zok the Shulchan Aruch, I believe this is the Lashon, I wrote it down. Asul lechol pas misha asiris, which we'll get to explain what exactly the time of Mincha Ktana is. Kedei, why? Why in Allah to eat? Zok the Shulchan Aruch, kedei sheyoichel matzah l'tayavan. So, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to get the Pesach soon, Erev Pesach. The Isser to eat Erev Pesach in the afternoon is when you're going to eat the matzah, you should eat it l'tayavan. Tosfos in the beginning of the Perek stellt sich on the Lashon. We're learning Perek Arvei Pesachim. If you take a look in the Mishnah, even in the Gerson, our Mishnah, it's not Arvei Pesachim, it's Erev Pesachim. So Tosfos wants to understand, what does Erev Pesachim mean? Erev is Lashon Yachid, Erev Yom Tov, l'chayr should have been Erev Pesach. Elamai, if the Mishnah is talking about of all the years, Lashon Rabim, then it should have been Arvei Pesachim. What's Erev Pesachim? So one Teretz Tosfos says, Erev, we're talking about this Erev Pesach, but Pesachim, that we bring a lot of Karbonos Pesach. So it's Erev, we're talking about one Erev Pesach, but really it should be Erev Pesach, but it's not Erev of the Yom Tov of Pesach, it's the Erev that you bring a lot of Karbonos, or Karban Pesach. Tosfos' second teretz is Erev Pesachim, because it's referring to both Yom Tovim of Pesach, Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. Technically, maybe you could have said Arvei Pesachim, but to be meramis al kapanim, Erev of both Yom Tovim of Pesach. Tahainu Yudalid Nisan and Yudalid Iyar. That's the second teretz. And what's the Mishnah coming to say? The din of the Mishnah, that the Erev of both Arvei Pesachim, Erev Pesach Rishon and Erev Pesach Sheni, these are Isser to eat Anshe Techshach. Flektes Vasemes. As we just said, the Gemara concludes, what's the Isser to eat Erev Pesach? So you should eat the matzah l'tayavoin. Bishloi me Erev Pesach, Rishon Erev Pesach. These are mitzvah to eat matzah leil ha-seder. So mainly these are din, don't eat Anshe Techshach, you should eat l'tayavoin. However, Pesach Sheni, there is no din to eat matzah. Yes, the Torah Kedosha says to eat matzah, but it's a din to eat it together with the Karban Pesach. There's no din. The Karban Pesach is nechal l'tayavin. The Hainu, there's no din to eat matzah that you should eat the matzah l'tayavin. So Ibazoi, Flektes Vasemes, why is there a din lo yoichal Pesach Sheni? The Hainu Yudalad Anshe Techshach, totally eat, and you won't eat the matzah l'tayavin. And he blames the tzarech here. But al kapanim, the Isser is an Isser to eat samach lamincha from in the late afternoon. So first of all, it doesn't say min mincha, it says samach lamincha, close to mincha. So what's samach lamincha? Rashi says ma'at. The Rashbam says a half hour before mincha. So what's the cheshbon? How do you get to the cheshbon of mincha ktana? This is stam as I could die to know. Because really, a din of Shulchan Aruch, really, me'ikar adin de l'tchatchila, is really to daven mincha from mincha ktana. Though some l'tchatchila daven earlier, al pi de goyin, but in Shulchan Aruch it says that really, if you daven from right away from mincha gdoila, from 12:34, you're yoytze, which would seem be'etzem ikar adin, you should start from later. So what's the cheshbon? How do you get to the cheshbon? So here in Pesachim, in the beginning of the fifth Perek, the Mishnah says like this: Tamid nishchat, the carbon tamid, the tamid shal bein harabayim. When do you bring the bein harabayim? It's like the Mishnah, b'shmoino mechza. Let's break up. Obviously, it's totally in zmanius, meaning to say it's depending on how long the day is. But if the day is an even amount, equal day of 12 hours, and let's say that the day starts at 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night, the day ends. It's 12 hours, 6 to 6. So Tamid Nishchat B'Shmoino Mechza. So what's 8.5 of a day from 6 to 6? 6 to 12 is 6 hours, so it's 2:30. So it says the carbon Tamid Shal Bein Arabayim was brought 2:30 in the afternoon. The Korev, and when was it? Nikrav B'Tisho Mechza, 3:30 in the afternoon. That's the Zman of Mincha Ktana. Mincha that we daven is Keneged, the Hakrova of Tamid Shal Bein Arabayim. When was the Hakrova Shal Bein Arabayim? In a day, that the day is 6 to 6, it was 3:30 in the afternoon. So, if there's a day that's 6 to 6 even, the Zman Mincha Ktana is 3:30 in the afternoon. Though, of course, it depends. The day starts earlier, the later, longer, shorter, it's going to move around. You look it up on a calendar to see when it comes out. But Al Kopanim, on a 6 to 6 day, Mincha Ktana is 3:30. So from when does the Isser start to eat Erev Pesach? From 3 o'clock. 3:30 is the Zman Mincha Ktana. 3 o'clock, the Isser, the Mishnah says, Lo yoichal Erev Pesach, Arvei Samach leMincha, a half hour before Mincha. The Gemara concludes, Hayois, the reason is to eat l'tayav, and it's Mincha Ktana. Mincha Ktana is 3:30, so from 3 o'clock. Interesting, the Mishnah Berurah over here in Siman Taf Ayin Aleph, Toicha Dvarim, when speaking about the Isser, so the Mishnah Berurah says, Umin ha-minchu l'mayla. The Isser is min ha-minchu l'mayla. L'chayr, what do you mean min ha-minchu l'mayla? The Mishnah says, Samach l'mincha, a half hour before mincha. So the emes is that the Shaila is really on the Ramah. We're going to get to it soon, Behemshech HaShiur, but the Ramah in Hilchas Yom Tov, when he speaks about the Isser of eating, it's not Mamash Isser on Yom Tov, but the Ramah says, Erev Yom Tov, when should a person stop eating? So the Ramah says, Min ha-mincha, from mincha ktana. So over there already the Bir Halacha says it's lav dafka. When he says mincha, it doesn't mean dafka mincha, it means already a half hour before that. So when you look around in halacha, if sometimes the lashon is a lashon of min ha-mincha, it really means a half hour before mincha. So that's clear. The isser is the isser to eat from a half hour before mincha ktana, and the reason why it is the isser is you should eat a matzah l'tayavan. Let's stop for a minute and see legabe what is the isser. The isser is you're not allowed to eat. What are you not allowed to eat? Let's try to figure out where is a negeya. Your Erev Pesach, it's 3:30 in the afternoon, you're not allowed to eat. What are you not allowed to eat? So chametz, bread, you anyways not allowed to eat from Seif Zman Achilas chametz from the morning, from 10:30 in the morning. So chametz is anyways not negeya, challah. Matzah frek toisvis, you also can't eat matzah. Al piri Yerushalmi, it's not a bavli, it's Yerushalmi. It's interesting, machlekes rishonim, when exactly is the isser? But the Yerushalmi says, it's pretty famous, you're not supposed to eat matzah erev Pesach. So where's it a gay when the Mishnah says lo yoichal? What is the Mishnah telling me you're not allowed to eat? Chametz you enemies can't eat. Matzah you can't eat. Mini targima. Let's define it. Let's see nash. So Tosis you could anyways eat the whole day. So where exactly is it negeya this halacha? This iser the rabbanon that you're not allowed to eat? Legabe what? Bread you can't eat. Matzah you can't eat. Zok Toisvis. You know where it's negeya? It's negeya matzah ashira. Matzah ashira, the hainu matzah that you added in other ingredients. Let's call it what we know it as egg matzah. Egg matzah is something that you're not yoytza leila seder, and for that the Yerushalmi is not applicable. This that the Yerushalmi says you're not allowed to eat erev Pesach matzah. That's only matzah. That's only matzah you can be yoytze b'leila seder, not egg matzah. And Tosfos brings v'cheda hanoig Rabbi Nochum, which is negeya a year of erev Pesach shechalias b'Shabbos, like next year haba aleinu l'toiva. Erev Pesach shechalias b'Shabbos. So eating the sudas, you're allowed to eat chametz till 10:30. What's about shalosh shudas? It's a whole discussion. Not for now. Last erev Pesach shechalias b'Shabbos over here in the morning koilel, we went through a series of 5 shurim, going through all the halachas. But al kopanim, egg matzah you're allowed to eat. You're allowed to eat egg matzah erev Pesach. So for that is where it's negay that the Mishnah says the Issa Chachamim, egg matzah you're allowed to eat erev Pesach, but only up till call it Shah Asiris. Why Shah Asiris? Because 8:30, Teisha v'chetzi, which means not when the 10th hour starts, which means B'Shah Teisha. Al kopanim 3 o'clock. So Mamela, this din that the Mishnah says you're not allowed to eat erev Pesach is negeya egg matzah. That's where it's negeya. You're not allowed to eat egg matzah. This is a Tosfos.
Because you can't use it by the seder, or is it telling you something that you can't be used to the mitzvah by the seder, or is it telling you something which, being let's say Saturday matzah, I forget the real name.
Good. We're going to get to this mamash in a minute. And Lamaisa, what's the exact reason is a little bit inkan mekoima. It's a good point what you're bringing up. I don't want to get in Gansen involved in the Yerushalmi and the time and what type of matzah, but it's a beautiful question you brought up. We're going to actually get to another example in a minute, mamash, about this. But Al Kapanim Tosfos' teretz is very clear. When Chazal told us we have an isser to eat, you know what you're not allowed to eat erev Pesach? Egg matzah, matzah ashira. The Marsha says that I have another example. Another example, or heichatimtza, what the Mishnah is saying you're not allowed to eat, like you brought up good, b'tseika shal nachri. What is b'tseika shal nachri? Any matzah that was made shaloi l'shem matzah's mitzvah is also to eat leil. You're not yoytza leila seder. If a goy makes matzah, l'maisa, at least even if a yid makes the matzah and it wasn't made l'shma, it's not chametz, you're allowed to eat it the whole Pesach, but you're not allowed to eat it leila seder. So that's another hechatim. So what it's aser, but seika shal nachri, matzah that was made shaloi l'shem mitzvah.
You're not using the mitzvah.
Yeah.
But which one?
Matzah shir also not yoytza the mitzvah. If you eat matzah shir, you're not yoytza.
You're not yoytza, but if you eat it at night, it's not like you're eating chametz or anything.
Right, so B'tzeika Shal Nachri also, if you eat it at night, you're not eating chametz. By Shulchan Aruch, you can eat B'tzeika Shal Nachri, you just can't be yoytza, the mitzvah matzah, B'tzeika Shal Nachri. L'maisa, the Marsha says maybe no. Maybe you're not, maybe B'tzeika Shal Nachri is included in the Isser of the Yerushalmi that you're not allowed to eat. The Hainu matzah that was made Shaloi L'Shem Mitzvah. Like what you brought up before, that it could be only egg matzah that doesn't have the tam of matzah's mitzvah, you're allowed to eat Erev Pesach. Masha'enki matzah, it's the exact same matzah that you eat the mitzvah. It's just mitzing the lishma, says the Marsha, could be, you're not yoytza. You're not allowed to eat it Erev Pesach. So Mila says the Marsha, that wouldn't be a heichatim, so it wouldn't be a good example. Lamaisa, the Meiri actually does bring it as a teretz, that when the Mishnah says that we learned lo yoichal, either it's matzah shira or it's b'tzeika shal nachri, dahainu, a matzah that was made by a goy or even by a yid shaloi l'shem mitzvah. This discussion of b'tzeika shal nachri is not just a theory. It's Torah G'dosha, but it's not just a handlerai. The Marsha says another echetimtza, and then he's matcha, and the Meiri actually stays like that. The Minchas Yitzchak has a tshuva. It's a few pages long, and he was asked, could you use b'tzeika shal nachri? In other words, let the matzah bakeries. It's a year of erev Pesach shechalias b'Shabbos, and they asked him, you see, egg matzah is very nice, but lamaisa, at least la'alocha, we don't eat egg matzah. Only kids over Pesach. So in other words, you eat egg matzah on Erev Pesach, Shechal b'Shabbos, somewhat in hotels. However, why can you make b'tzeika shal nachri, make matzah, and the matzah you can't eat it Leila Seder. You can eat it Erev Pesach, you can eat it the whole Pesach, just not Leila Seder. They asked him to be able to do it for hotels, and they also asked him to be able to do it for the army. To make matzah that's not, you're not yoytza leila seder, you can eat it Erev Pesach. So Lamaisa, the Minchas Yitzchak responded and he said, first of all, Lafira Marsha, you can't eat it Erev Pesach. And V'oid, even Lafira Meiri, that the Meiri says that you could, at least Al Kapanim told Mincha Ktana, he says you shouldn't do it because Lamaisa Michshel will come out. Meaning to say, even Lafira Meiri, that you could do it, especially if you're going to do it on a big scale in hotels, the army, and even if you're going to ride on the box, don't eat it Leila Seder. People are not going to know this type of special matzah, not for the Leila Seder. You go to the matzah box, matzah says Kosher Pesach, you can have a Leila Seder. So maybe you shouldn't do it. Al Kaponim, Tosas' kasha was Lagabe, what is the Isser? The Tosas said matzah shiru. We saw the Meiri says another teretz. Lagabe b'tzeika shal nachri, the hainu matzah that was made shaloi l'shem mitzvah. The Rambam in Perek HaMishnah says, you know where the Isser is negeya? The Isser is negeya basar v'dagim, and this is taka very negeya. You're not allowed to eat from mincha ktana a suda of basar v'dagim. You're allowed to eat a little bit, like the Lashon HaShulchan Aruch, over the Taf Ayin Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch says, Oichel ma'at peiris v'yirakis. But Lafi the Rambam and Perek HaMishnah seemingly brought la'alacha. You see, the Seder takes a long time. Till you eat is 1 o'clock. The matzah first, you're eating 1 o'clock. So be'etzem, you want to sit down 5:30 in the afternoon and eat a full supper. You're not going to wash, but you want to have full basar v'dagim. So that also, Zok the Rambam, when the Mishnah says lo yoichal, there's an isser to eat erev Pesach in the afternoon, basar v'dagim. So really what would come out is look up in the calendar. I didn't check yet what time it is. Let's say it's 4 o'clock. So before 4 o'clock, you could eat a full early supper, so to speak. Obviously, this is not even the discussion, B'chlal. If a person eats so much that he's not going to even be able to eat the matzah achila gasa, that's not even a discussion. That's not what we're talking about. It's all the tiyav. And though the Gemara says the lashon of achila gasa, as the Rishonim explain, it means b'pashtus in the Rashbam, the other Rishonim, it means you're not going to eat l'tayavin. So we have over here 2 or 3 explanations what the layochal is. Be'etzem, so we said either matzah shira, maybe b'tzeika shal nachri, basar v'dagim. Be'etzem, there's another example. For those in Klal Yisrael that eat gebroks, so it's negeya, kneidlich for an example. Could you sit down and could you eat min mincha? Feed the ram, you can't eat basar v'dagim. But let's say if you can't eat matzah shira b'tzeika shal nachri. What's about kneidlich or anything that goes into gebroks? It's not washing to a suda, it's mezoinus. Could you eat it? However, the etzem, l'chayr, it's not a geya because you're not allowed to eat it the whole day. The hainu. The Shulchan Aruch and Siman Tafai Aleph, the Siman that we're talking about in Beis, the Ramah says, matzah shenefer kitikana, you have regular matzah, and then you made it matzah mel, you ground it, v'niloshe b'yayin v'shemen, and then you mixed it with oil, wine, that sounds like kneidlich. It's not matzah shira, even though matzah shira, when you originally make the matzah and you put in oil, that is matzah shira. But if it was made regular matzah, you made a matzah mel, then you mix in oil, that's not matzah shira, and it's usher to eat the whole erev Pesach. So then, what we're saying now with kneidlich l'chayr falls off, because you anyways can't eat it the whole Pesach. However, if you take a look in the Mishabura, it's only talking about if you bake it. You made matzah mel, you put in oil, and you bake it, that you're not allowed to eat the whole day. However, the Mishabura says clearly that was cooked, you are allowed to. So that would l'chayr being another example of what would be asr, that would l'chayr go into the isser, what the Mishnah is saying, lo yochal. Just real briefly, and with this I want to conclude the shiur. Up until now, we spoke about the isser of eating erev Pesach. What's about erev Yom Tif, erev Shabbos? What's the din over there? So before going into erev Shabbos, which really the Gemara speaks about, but us and Arvei Pesachim, erev Sukkos, the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah in Siman Tafrei Shlamet Hasif Gimel, the Ramah brings the Maril. The Maril says there's an isser to eat erev Sukkos from Chatzos, and the Ramah says Bechatesa. The Ramah says it's learned from Pesach. Just like Pesach, you're not allowed to eat erev Pesach to eat the matzah l'tayavon. So too, erev Sukkos, you're not allowed to eat leil Sukkos in the sukkah l'tayavon. This itself, there's a lot of Torah to speak about. What's the mitzvah in the sukkah? What's the l'tayavon? But let's go clear the Shulchan Aruch. The Ramah says he's an issa to eat erev Sukkos dumya de Pesach. So the Achronim say, wait a second, you're telling me that the Isser comes from Sukkos, from Pesach? Sukkos is learned from Pesach. The Isser from Pesach is from when? It's from Mincha Ktana, not from Chatzos. So what's the pshat that says from Chatzos? So the Mishabura Taka brings, that's why Taka Anacharami, Sukkos Taka is also only later in the afternoon. Erev Sukkos you could eat the Isser. What the Ramah says, B'doimah to the Mishnah Lagabe Pesach, is taka only later, only from Mincha Ktana. The Ben Ish Chai is miyashiv. If you learn from Pesach, and Pesach we learned the Mishnah, min mincha, which is mincha ktana, not mincha gdoila and a half hour before the Hainu Chatzos. So what's the difference sukkahs and Pesach? Moir de Geschmacke ben Aschai says, you know why Pesach, these are later time? Only from, let's call it 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The reason why it only starts from 3 o'clock in the afternoon is because till you start eating Leila Seder, regardless of how long your Haggadah Shal Pesach takes, but you don't start right away. Meaning to say, these Kaddish, Urchatz, Karpas, it takes time. So by the time you eat the matzah, it's already, let's call it 2-3 hours in or something like that, into the night. So Mamela, we could allow you to eat till mincha ktana and you'll still eat l'tayavan. Masha enkein sukkis. When do you eat in the sukkah? You daven ma'ariv, you come home and you eat in the sukkah. So come to chayis, there, if you're going to be able to eat mincha ktana, you're not going to have the l'tayavan. So that's why sukkis, it's moved back earlier. The isser to eat sukkis is already b'chatzos. So it's more or less equivalent, it's bedoima to Pesach later in the afternoon told the matzah. Sukkis from Chatzos told the matzah is about the same idea of time to eat l'tayavan. Lastly, and to conclude, is Lagabe Shabbos. Shabbos, the Gemara brings a machlokes in the beginning of Arvei Pesachim if there's an issa to eat Erev Shabbos. The Isser that we're learning Arvei Pesachim is an Isser Erev Shabbos as well. Today Erev Shabbos, also this afternoon, could you sit down to eat a Suda? La halacha, it's mutter. La halacha, it's mutter. It's mutter to eat. It's mutter. The Gemara is machlekes halacha, it's mutter. I'm not talking about Suda Gedolah is a separate discussion. Purim, when you have to, when you don't have to, that's next year. Purim is Friday. It's mutter. However, Zokta Shulchan Aruch, Avol Mu'ula, Mitzvah Limnoya Melekvoya Suda Shenoig B'Bachayil. Erev Pesach is a Isser, it's Aser. Erev Shabbos is a Mitzvah, it's a Maila, it's an Inyan, it's a Mitzvah not to eat in the afternoon. And the same thing is also in Hilchas Yom Tif, the same thing. Dahainu, Pesach is a Isser, Sukkot is also an Isser. What's about the second days of Sukkot, second days of Pesach? What's about Shavuos? Zokta Shulchan Aruch, Vaita de Ramah in Hilchas Yom Tov Siman Tavkov Chavtes. V'asa lechol also min mincha, which we said is Chatzi Shakayid la mincha. And the Mishabura says Aser lav dafka. It's a mitzvah not to eat. Memela come to chayos like this: Erev Pesach, Erev Sukkot, these are Isser. However, Erev Shabbos, it's only a mitzvah. But just like I said before, Avada, this is only talking about when it's not going to be Achila Gasa. Erev Shabbos, if a person's going to sit down Friday afternoon and he's going to have a huge Tayamel, and by the time he sits down Friday night, if it's not L'Tayavan, okay, so you weren't Makayim the mitzvah. But if a person sits down Friday night to the Suda, and he ate or he drank, and he poshet can't eat, that's Aser. That's Aser. This that Erev Shabbos is only a mitzvah not to eat. It's a hidur. That's only when we're talking about l'teyavam. But if you're not going to be able to eat, it's going to be achila gas, and then there's a Isser. Have a wonderful Shabbos.